Greetings, members one and all of the Salivation Nation. Is cash really trash? And is the dollar money? Let's explore! Most of us in this community have a lot of negative views about the article that you see before you here, comprised of cotton and linen fibers. This note has a designation and a denomination of $1. It is backed by the full faith and credit of the United States government, and it is utilized in transactions in over 60% of the nations around the world. It is the top dog in the world reserve currencies, the breadbasket of currencies by the IMF. But there's a lot of problems with it, make no mistake. But before we talk about whether it is trash or not, first we must discuss it in terms of defining if it is considered money. And that is where we go back to the basics. First, we have to define what money is. As defined by Merriam-Webster's dictionary, money is defined as something generally accepted as a medium of exchange, a measure of value, or a means of payment in short terms. And of course, you can expand upon that in several different factors and ways. It's a very broad definition for sure. But essentially, when you take it to its grassroots level, you have to look at it in terms of the properties of money. What are the properties of money? It is fungible. In other words, its individual units must be capable of mutual substitution. It's interchangeable. And I think that can be defined pretty much in most of our transactions that we do today with these notes. They are certainly interchangeable. It is durable, able to withstand repeated use. Well, this is made of paper. Some people mistakenly say it's made of paper, but it's actually made of cotton linen fibers, and they can last a pretty good long time. They're not quite as strong as this, though. And this is a dollar presidential coin that was actually minted for circulation, very rarely used, as was its predecessor, the golden dollar, made of a manganese brass. But these particular coins were intended for circulations and are very much durable, as this coin was, the Susan B. Anthony, the predecessor and the very first small dollar that was minted by the United States government. Very durable for sure. Probably even more so yet was the Ike dollar. In this particular example here, it is the 1972 Ike dollar, still clad, but very durable and very big. Recognizable, unmistakable. But the other aspect is divisibility. It can be divided into small units. And that is the case where these coins here, they're designated as $1. The subset of those would be quarters, dimes, nickels, etc. So it can be divisible one way. And of course, if you look at the paper units, for the same amount, essentially the same amount of ink and the same amount of cotton linen fiber and the same exact size, you can get a larger note that will comprise of just the number on it says its value as more than $1, $20. In this case, you have it going up to $50. But the major denomination, the foundation, is that dollar there. Then you have portability. Well, sure, these dollar bills are very portable. In fact, some say, even though these are smaller and can fit inside your pocket, the portability of a paper note is much more desirable. This is why these particular coins aren't utilized for circulation anymore, because of the dollar bill replacing them. It's much lighter, for sure. And then its value, its store of value, its cognizability. It must be easily identified. Well, when you see a note like this compared to a note like this, you immediately understand and recognize the value of this particular note which is comprised of this essentially the same materials, has a higher value than the $1 note. And then the other aspect of it is scarcity. Scarcity is where the debate really takes a turn south, because they are printing many, many more of these notes now than ever before in the age that we live in. And so there is that. So now the question is, and the difference between money and currency is where we get hung up. And that is where it is relatively controversial. Because what is currency? Well, currency, it does have the fungibility. It's interchangeable. It's divisible. It's portable. It's durable. It's a unit of account. And it's a medium of exchange. And that really is what currency is. Money, though, has one extra factor. And that extra factor is what we discussed here, and that is the cognizability. It's a store of value. And the question is does this dollar bill have a store of value? And I would argue that it does. The store of value is the fiat designation. And that leads us to the other account here or the other definition that we're going to look in, and that is, what is fiat? Fiat is a government decree. The government has made this note legal tender for all debts, public and private. In other words, this dollar is a debt instrument. In other words, it is definitely a unit that can help to settle debts. And that's why, in some ways, the dollar has been referred to as the ghost of money, because it is a debt instrument. Well, let's go back a little bit in time, because there was a time when this note could help and be interchangeable for what many of us would consider to be true money, and that is silver. This silver certificate could be exchanged for, 0.77 ounces of silver, because that was the count back of a time when the dollar looked like this. That's right. This is a $1 silver dollar, 0.77 ounces of silver there. And so at that time, this particular note has a government decree. This certificate is legal tender for all debts, public and private. And as a certificate made of the same material as this, but it is not a Federal Reserve note. In other words, it's not some bank that gives it, that helps to limit its supply, or quite the opposite these days, but it also is backed by and redeemable by silver, payable to the bearer on demand. That's right, $1. But it is a paper note. It is a silver certificate. And that is the difference there. And so that brings us to this. That ties us to this, silver. And, gold, to another extent. There's also the 90% gold coins that we have come to know and love, the pre-33 gold. And there is a gold dollar as well. But this has a government decree. It is backed by the full faith and credit of the government. But it is also backed by the intrinsic value of the silver contained therein, which is why they put the reeds on the edges of these coins to prevent people from filing them down for their value, because they could just sell they could just constitute that silver and sell it off from filing down the edges. That's the whole reason for reading there. And so therefore, the difference between this coin, this note, and this note is really essentially the shifting of a faith, of being the faith in the metal contained therein. What backs the dollar, other than government decree, is the metal contained therein, which really is an argument many of us make, and just the government itself. We're off the gold standard, and the only standard we're on right now is a full faith and credit of the United States government, for whatever that's worth. And that is really the bottom line, because we're still making silver dollars today, And this is an example of the American Silver Eagle. And this is certainly worth more than $1. And by the way, so is this, because of the metal contained therein. It is not tied to any kind of fiat designation other than what the government stamps on it to back it for being a genuine United States Mint product. But really, the silver speaks for itself. It contains a lot more value in the silver than the dollar amount inscribed upon it or stamped upon it. So that leaves us back to this note here. These, by its very design, are losing a value of 2% each year. Other years and other measures, it's certainly a lot more. In fact, over the last 4 months, by many measures, the dollar has lost over 10% of its value. But make no mistake, there's something very powerful about fiat designation. And I'm going to make the argument here that that fiat designation, fiat value, is what makes the dollar, yes, money. Not just currency, but money. We value them. Everybody in the world really values them because without the dollar, really much of the world, at least 60% of the nations that utilize it for transactions, would not be able to make their economic engines flow. But it is in trouble. That does not mean that it can't fail or fall. And by most measures, most of us believe that this particular unit will be reset in some form or another. And I believe that will happen. And it may happen sooner rather than later, considering how much of these they are printing. Because with more of these that they print or digitize and put out there and quantitatively ease into the environment that we live, well, the faith is shaken greatly. But make no mistake, everybody uses these to purchase these, food, groceries, everything. We have complete faith in this. Everybody that works gets paid in these. So therefore, I'm also making the argument that cash is indeed not trash, and there's something to be said for holding these and valuing these. In fact, I would recommend you store these, a great measure of these, for emergencies, just as much, maybe even if not more so in some cases, than these, because these can be very volatile at times, and we've seen that as of late, even though they are increasing overall in price, and their value is really becoming realized, is really what I mean to say there. But the cash that we hold in our hands, I believe, is not trash, and we should hold on to it, and we should celebrate it, but we should have an insurance against the failure thereof, because the more that they print these, the more likelihood that we will need these and this to keep us going, as an insurance policy against the failure of the note of the dollar. And so that is the message that which is why you will not hear me really call the dollar trash. I believe it is something that we should not celebrate by any stretch, because it is in dire straits, it is in trouble. But I believe we need to get to a system of a sound dollar. It is certainly not sound at this point, but it is, by any measure, something of value and something that we should recognize and respect, at least for now, for the time being, as something that we will continue to hold. Because how many people would if it's trash, throw these things away if they were presented with one of these particular units of measure? I would argue that no one would throw it away or burn it or let it go. So post your thoughts below. A little bit of a controversial topic, but I hope you get where I'm coming from. I believe the ultimate form, the best form of money is gold and silver. It's been tested and it's been true for thousands of years. But for right now, the dollar is king. I would like to extend a multitude of gratitude to you all for taking the time to watch, and encourage you to please rate, share, comment, and subscribe.